So some tips I've used in the past to be able to win in multiple offer situations. Like I said earlier, put your best foot forward. Go ahead and maybe put a larger lump sum of money, a larger deposit. Sometimes can actually mean you end up winning that offer. I'll give you an example. Let's say that both you and buyer number two, you're coming up at the same price, the same terms, the same date. So now we've submitted the offer, and now what? Oh no, there's multiple offer situation. My name is Fady Khudair. I'm a local realtor here with Sutton Group, Ottawa. And for everything that you want to know about real estate, Canada on the Rocks is the channel to be. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. So what happens when we get into multiple offers? Here are some possible situations. The sellers have multiple options to make. If they have multiple offers in front of them, they really just want to make sure at the end of the day, they're picking the offer that's right for them. Rightfully so. I mean, this is their hard-earned money, and they've been doing this for quite some time. And they really want to make sure that when they're getting out of this house, they're getting the best value for their buck. So they can do one of a few things. One, they accept the offer, the best offer they have for that buyer, call that buyer or let them know via email, whatever the case may be, or pigeon carrier, I don't know. Just let them know that their offer has been accepted and they move forward with that. The other scenario would be to try to go and get those offers to come back with possibly more and more money. And that, again, is really something that the seller's agent can finesse and work with the seller to try to make that happen and try to get them the most amount of money. So in that situation, they can go back to the buyers and just say, hey, we have multiple offers. There's a bunch of competing offers. We have the option nowadays, if the seller allows for it, to open up and show the buyers what we have. Now, mind you, you have to be very, very careful in that situation, because as a buyer, I sometimes put an offer or put a condition in there that will not allow the seller to open up my offers. And if they do, my offer is rejected. So just be very, very careful as a seller's agent, or for yourself. Let your agent know that, hey, if this is the case, I don't necessarily want to compete. I want to walk away. That's a possibility. Not everybody has the skin for it. Now, the seller can also sometimes go back and counter one of their best offers if they want and work directly with that particular buyer and try to get the most amount of money while the others are actually sitting on the side and waiting. It all depends on a couple of things. What's the irrevocable time? How much time do I have as a seller to go back and forth between the different buyers? And then sometimes you might end up working with one of the buyers, trying to get the most amount of money. And if that doesn't work, you can revert back and work with the next best buyer and so on and so forth. So it's really up to the seller and the seller's agent on how they want to handle that. And hopefully we're here to help you with that situation on the buyer side. And it does take a little bit of understanding of what the psychology that goes behind it in terms of a seller or in terms of the seller's agent. It's also best to know what the seller's agent, what their style of work is like and all of that. It's really, this is where connections and relationship can come handy, because you're able to kind of read and kind of figure out where you want to go from there. Now, these are situations where I absolutely will not recommend to go in with a low ball offer. It's definitely detriment for you and for your offer to go in at a very low ball, because what you're doing is you're really just kind of enhancing this, right? Like you're getting the seller to get what they want, which is multiple offers, but you're also shooting yourself in the foot, if you know what I mean, by coming in with a low ball offer and then having to kind of dig yourself out of that hole. Sometimes you could also really completely take off that seller and just have them not necessarily want to work with you whatsoever. So just be very cognizant, and this is where the strategy for us to kind of work together to come up with a plan that makes total sense and absolutely get you the home of your dreams. Now, just because there are multiple offers, it doesn't mean that they're always going to get the top price, or sometimes it might not be the top price. Sometimes it might be the best conditions. Sometimes it might be the best terms, if you will. So it's really a job that requires a little bit of finessing, a little bit of skill, if you will, to have that conversation with the seller or the seller's agent and get a little bit more of an understanding of what does the seller want. What's the ideal scenario for them? How can we get them to part away with that lovely home that they have and move forward? So it's not always about the price. Sometimes it could just be the closing date. Sometimes it could just be the amount of deposit. Sometimes it could just be they're looking for that particular family. And this is where I would suggest to put in a nice, lovely letter, describe your family, let them know about your situation, let them know that you fell in love with the home and you're willing to move in and take care of it just like they did and go forward for that. Now, just because we're in a multiple offer situations, again, it does not mean that we have to pay full price for the house. Paying a full price for the house sometimes can result in, because we are in multiple offers, it could result in a fact that you've already overpaid for the property. So be very, very careful that you don't overpay for the property, and have a plan ahead that you're going to be walking away at a certain threshold, and respect that, because that's exactly where people go wrong, where buyers end up overpaying for their home that they shouldn't. And nobody should overpay for a home, because what if? What if you have to sell that home in a couple of years and you've already overpaid by 3 or 4%? You might not regain that money back. Or what if the economy does take a bit of a hit? You don't want to be at a place where you're just sort of sitting there on the edge and overpaying for a home. So some tips I've used in the past to be able to win in multiple offer situations. Like I said earlier, put your best foot forward. Go ahead and maybe put a larger lump sum of money, a larger deposit. Sometimes can actually mean you end up winning that offer. I'll give you an example. Let's say that both you and buyer number 2, you're coming up at the same price, the same terms, the same date, but yours had a little bit more deposit, let's say, 50K versus 25K. That shows a lot of skin in the game, and definitely the buyers, or the sellers, sorry, are going to be leaning towards you, because obviously that just means it's a lot more sticky as a sale for them. Another good one that we see quite often, and I don't suggest it for everybody because this is only based on your situation, have a lot less conditions or a lot less contingencies, if you will, for the seller. This will allow you to have your best foot forward and allow the seller to go, okay, well, there's only, 2 different conditions in this offer, or there's only 1 condition in this offer, or there's no conditions at all in this offer. Again, I do not personally recommend this to everybody, especially when it comes to inspection. But for example, go and have maybe your finance done. Talk to your lender first. Give them the house that you're looking for. Give them the price point that you are willing to walk away from, and let them qualify you on that. Let them get you the full approval, if you will, on that first before you put the offer in. A lot of good lenders will work with you and can turn around within 24, 48 hours and have an exact number for you to let you know that this is something that's doable and you can definitely move forward with it. So that will allow a lot less sort of riskiness. Sometimes it might be, I'm still going to have the same conditions, finance and inspection and maybe home insurance or whatever it is, but maybe the period for that contingency is less, which means instead of having 7 days, maybe I'll have 2 days. I'll have an inspection out ready tomorrow. I'll get it done tomorrow. I'll have my bank kind of taking a look at it today and then approve me tomorrow, and we waive the finances and we waive the inspection and move forward. Whatever you need to do to win that offer, you really need to have that conversation ahead of time. Do not ever try to lowball on a counter offer situations, because all you're doing is you're shooting yourself completely out of that race. So here's a few tips that I've always kind of talked about with my buyers. What can we do to make sure that you have your best foot forward when you're making that offer? This is where the relationship really comes handy. When you have that relationship with the seller's agent, or you know how they work, the style of their work, it's not always going to be just about the price. It's not always going to be just about the best offer. Sometimes it could just be, like I said earlier, relying on your senses and really have that sort of one-on-one conversation with the sellers or the seller's agent, and figure out exactly what is it going to take to make this happen for both of us, so it's a win-win situation. For more tips like this is a channel for You Cannot On The Rocks. I am your host, Fady Khudair, and thanks again for listening.